Hello, Sebastian Lucido here, and welcome to Headlines and Prophecy. Today we're going to take up a meeting that's coming up here at the end of January. It happens every year in Davos, Switzerland. It's essentially a mobilization of global leaders from academia, from business, from banking, from medical, geopolitical, to come together in Davos, Switzerland, and to formulate initiatives and agendas. This is where the World Economic Forum is, and essentially that's a structure where governments work together, nations work together to pool funds to help initiatives around the world, whether it be health or geopolitical or helping poor nations with different tragedies. I think that Davos this year will become, regardless of the U.S. Election, will become the starting point of what I call the Antichrist sort of global system. And let's talk about it. It's called the Great Reset. And I'll talk about the presidential election a little bit later. But the global reset is essentially the re-engineering of the earth to a new reset, to a new standard, to new rules, to new procedures and policies. It's basically in the vein of eliminating national sovereignty and moving the globe toward regulatory structure at multiple levels and then enforced from a global standpoint, which means that there's open trade and open borders, and there's conformity in banking and finance and health and environment. I mean, in Davos this year, which begins on the 25th and ends on the 29th, here's their agenda. It's Save the Planet, right, which is environmental. It's Fairer Economics, which is redistribution of wealth. Again, taking from the wealthier and redistributing the wealth globally, not just in a nation. Tech for good, technology for good, social engineering and awareness, health, business, and geopolitical. And so they come together and they begin to forge initiatives. During Obama, this began to become more of a global sort of globalization. In fact, we've seen the Paris Accords come out of Davos, which is the regulatory mandate globally, which reaches into each individual nation and puts demands on the individual nation's businesses, organizations, and citizens. So it's not their parliament or Congress or president that's making the rules. It's the global network of a collaboration of organizations that make the regulations and laws, and then they're enforced on their own citizens. This is completely contrary to our Constitution, completely against it. It's something that we shouldn't even be a part of. I mean, there's certain things that we can do together, but giving up our sovereignty is not one of them. And so I believe that President Trump came in and he was like a cold blanket on Davos. When he came into office, he got rid of, in fact, everything that they had set up for our nation. He eliminated all of it. He eliminated Paris. He eliminated the Iranian deal. He eliminated everything, and bringing, what was his motto? Make America Great Again, which was causing us to be independent in our sovereignty and dealing with the world through a different lens, right? And so Davos, I think, regardless of the U.S. Election, is going to move exponentially toward global governance. And I think the reason is, first of all, I think it's spiritual. I think it is the structure of Antichrist. But because of COVID and economies and trade and issues, geopolitical situations, the emergence of China and Russia, I think that the world is saying, hey, we have to come together and we have to look at how do we, put together initiatives that help us move forward. Naturally, this all takes away independence and rights in the name of fear. I think the second thing is that they need to control. They want to control. You've heard of, digital passports. You've heard of passports including vaccinations because of COVID. And so there's many U.S. companies and countries now that are going to mandate that we have some sort of digital passport that would allow us to even work for a company or to travel into a country, validating our vaccination of COVID and whatever else may come up. And there's even talk of this, and it rises to a level of anger in us that they want to implement this within the body. I mean, I've seen the interview with Bill Gates and others about setting up some sort of minor or mini operating system within us that would trace us, track us, speak of our habits, speak of our record of vaccinations and other things. So it's a part of our person. Naturally, when you look at this biblically, that is to us, it's Revelation chapter 13, the mark, right? But what it's doing is, by doing this globally and using the fear and the fallout from COVID in this new strain, most of the citizens of the world are going to conform and join into this. And the other thing I think that we're going to see is, and you're going to be surprised at 21 at Davos, is censorship. You're going to see, because of what happened these last weeks and the stance that U.S. companies like Twitter, Facebook, and other social media companies, Apple, have taken against eliminating the alternative voices. I mean, just think about it. We're in the United States of America, and you have these companies eliminating the voices of U.S. citizens who have an alternative point of view. And yet, if you go to Twitter, you can see the Ayatollah of Iran, who would love to eliminate the U.S. from the face of the earth. You can see Al Qaeda members, and so they're not censoring them. They're not throwing them off. So it's purely political, in a stance of trying to drive the United States into the arms of this globalization, this take control, and so not only do they want to track and eliminate freedoms and control the population, where we are, what we're doing, how we're spending, but also they want to censor what we're hearing so that they can control the message. I mean, when you think about it, the first thing that the communists did in Russia was to take over the media at that time. The first thing that we see in Nazi Germany was the same, and so they crafted the message for the public. And so while there was this genocide right in their country, they crafted the message about, and they gave the people what they wanted to hear. That is a very dangerous thing for any country in the world, and especially ours. We see roughly half of the country, completely divided from this and not wanting this, and yet they're taking away and they're eliminating the opposition voices, which people just tend to believe what they hear and what they read. And so, and then the fourth part of this, I think, is that Davos 2022. So let's look at the presidential election. I prayed for President Trump. I pray for his family. I pray for our nation. I pray that if there's a way for him to become president, I pray today, God, please open that door. I've seen every constitutional pathway from the Congress to the judiciary. I've seen every door shut. I've seen the alternative voices to Christians and President Trump begin to, even though they watched Oregon and Washington burn and Minneapolis burn, and they attacked the White House, they attacked congressional leaders when they left the Congress, Antifa did, and so they're hypocrites, and they're only looking at one side of this. But when you look at where President Trump is now, it will take a move of God. I mean, there's a lot. I get 5 to 6 emails a day with videos, and I'm sure you've seen all of the different things that are. I'm not going to call it conspiracy theories, but I'm going to call it that there's something going on in the background. I don't know if it's true or not. I pray it is, but at the end of the day, you and I, we play the cards that God deals us. A lot of prayer has gone into this. We've sought it. We're fighting for it. I'm still praying for it. But at the end of the day, the world is going to continue on this globalization track because they have to. The thing standing between us buying into this, are our leaders buying into it, because now the Democrats have the House and the Senate, is President Trump, frankly, and some of these other things that we're hearing. My job is to tell you what the Lord has spoken to me. In this particular case, when it comes to the U.S. election, I am praying desperately for our nation, because the fallout of it, I don't think anyone can understand. Some of the nonsense, because we talk about headlines here, some of the nonsense in the election, I don't think will get any traction. For instance, adding 2 or 3 states, Puerto Rico, District of Columbia, and California. I don't think that they can, one, end the filibuster, which would be the only way for it to occur. And 2, I think there are voices within the opposition, the Democratic Party, that oppose statehood for the other 3. They oppose some of the other stuff like stacking the court, and so I don't know what the future holds, but the margins are so thin, and there are voices that aren't that drastic yet, unless they wear them out. I don't see some of those things happening, but buying into this, the globalization, open borders, spreading money around the world, changing our banking system, eliminating our banking system, and giving up our sovereignty for regulations, and if we're either going to be opposed to it because we have a leader like Trump that has the veto power, or we're going to go headstrong into this, because this is something that Congress will ratify, and with that comes alternative lifestyles, things that are sin, abortion, and some of the other things that we stand against. But here's the thing. In Davos 22, you could see actually regulations and rules be implemented on church leaders, and again, eliminating opposition voices and thinking process, at which we would exponentially move toward the tribulation period. When I look at this and I look at where we're at, because regardless of what happens in this election, over half of our country, and year by year, more of our country is drinking the Kool-Aid. And unless the church stands up and doesn't worry about censorship, and doesn't worry about the fallout, and doesn't worry about the 501c3, and doesn't worry about being penalized, and we begin to speak the truth, and we begin to bring the truth, and we bring a new godly fear to our nation and to the people in our nation, we're going to be a dwindling remnant as this goes on, because we've not done a good job to this point, and so we need to turn that around. And so if I were you, I would watch what happens in Davos, do some research. It's spelled D-A-V-O-S. It's Davos, Switzerland. The meeting's on the 25th to the 29th. And at that meeting, representing the U.S. will either be Peter Navarro and the Trump team, or it'll be John Kerry and the Biden team. And so we'll know in the next, less than 2 weeks. And again, what can you do? Pray. The other thing you could do is obtain knowledge, because knowledge gives you power. And so with that, I'm going to close. I encourage you, if you're watching this today, to go to our website, Watchers of Truth, watchersoftruth.com, and sign up as a member. Become a member. Join us. We need your name and your email address. We need to know who you are. And you'll get our free curriculum, which is on our website, digital curriculum. You can have free physical curriculum. You'll get notes before our Bible study. I teach on end times every Saturday morning, and a general Bible study every Tuesday at 7 p.m. You'll get lots of free resources. private commentary that we don't just throw up on the web, that we do for our Plus members. And the other thing it does is eventually they're going to take us down. Eventually we will not be able to do this unless other platforms are built. And I do think that's going to happen. But it connects us. And so I encourage you to become a free member with us. Join with us in our effort to continue to educate on an uncompromised teaching. I don't care. I teach what God gives me. We don't care about numbers and crowds and pleasing anyone. We just want to give an uncompromised teaching, and that's what the Lord has called me to. We produce and distribute these free curriculum because that, I believe, that it's our job to produce and distribute free teaching so that people aren't hindered by finances, but they could get materials that help them understand a rightly divided word. So I thank you for joining us today. I pray that you'll join us by becoming a member at Watchers of Truth. And until next Monday, God bless you.